So my name is Stephanie January, as you just heard, and I've been doing this for 8 years, and I have closed 2,000 plus transactions in my career doing this. Um, and so for me, I do contract to close for agents in our office, not just for like the specific team that I work on. So it's kind of interesting to see all the different personalities like to work for. So that's what we're going to go over today, is that part of the transaction. Because it looks like this is everything else that you guys have gone through up until this point. And the next is plan your future. Um, so so as far as as the timeline goes, like there's like the best practices and risk and avoidance, referrals and reviews, post-close follow-up, recaps and ahas, which you're going to have a million of them after every single transaction that you close, and daily success systems. If you guys have any questions throughout this, just unmute. You don't need to like raise your hand or do anything like that. Just unmute. Okay, so real estate transactions aren't particularly trouble-free. It's a strenuous and trying time that requires all the attention and effort you can command. So this is 100% accurate. So when you're dealing with putting a house on the market or taking a buyer around to tour homes and things like that, there's not a ton of room for failure. However, whenever it comes to the contract, that's when there are so many places within that process that things can go wrong. And it's not just it goes wrong a little bit and you can cover it up. It can go wrong tremendously, and you can miss a deadline, which means perhaps your client doesn't get to ask for any repairs. You miss a deadline to where the buyer suddenly says, I want out of this thing. And if you've missed several deadlines, you can't get them out of it, especially if their credit and like their financing with the lender is totally fine. So it does require an immense amount of detail and a lot of organization on your part. Okay, all right, we just talked about that. Okay, so deadlines and contracts. So a real estate agent, it is important to keep track of the deadlines in the contract. I'll let somebody in. So instructions are to use the contract you have been using in previous days of Ignite, use the timeline in your participant guide, use the contract to plot out the different deadlines in the contract. So to give you an example of different timelines that are in a contract. So one, you're going to have when the earnest money deposit is due. So like on, I'm not sure what state you guys are in, but so like, there's always like a number of days that it has to be deposited by whoever's holding it, title company or your office, within a certain amount of days. So that's one contingency. Next contingency is that the buyer has to meet loan application. While that has nothing to do with you, like something that you actionable have to do, you do have to make sure with their lender that their application is done and locked in. And to kind of give you some perspective on that too, with the application, the only way to lock in the buyer's rate is once that application is done. So you need to stay on top of those lenders to make sure that that has been completed and like we're past that process. The next one is going to be loan commitment. So this is when the file has gone through the underwriters, with the mortgage company, the lender, and they have cleared all conditions that like were needed to meet for like the financing requirement. That is due on a specific date as well. Typically, you have that due about 5 days prior to closing. You never want to do it earlier than that. Otherwise, you're going to be writing an extension for it. You have your inspections due date as to when they have to be done, and your repair request written and submitted to the other agent. Your response to the seller's response to the buyer's repair request. HOA document response time. So like, those are just some general contingency dates that like, you need to be mindful of. Put them on your calendar. So that way, like, they're right there and they like, it can ping you. So that way you, you remember, because technically if you miss the loan commitment and like, it's not like, done by the date that it needs to, then like, your buyer has not performed. And therefore, like, before you get there, you need to do an extension to make sure that like, you don't miss any of those timelines if you think that you're not going to meet them. So all that to say is that like, just be really, really mindful of those timelines. So in a contract, the way that like it's going to go is that you're going to go under contract. Can anybody tell me, what does a ratified contract mean?
All parties have signed.
All parties have signed?
Yeah, fully executed contract, is it?
Yes. So that means that every single page in that offer / now contract is signed. So like, and I'll tell you a story really quick. So we had a buyer went under contract with a, I'm sorry, it was our seller went under contract with a buyer, and he was an investor. And he goes in with one of his like guys that he works with, and he takes a look at the house. He next day sends over a release. And we're like, what are you doing? Like, there's no inspections. It's, it's a cash deal. Like, I mean, like, so there's nothing. He said, you missed an initial. And so technically he got out of the contract because we missed one initial. It sucked, but he wasn't wrong. So just be mindful of that. So that way, because people can get out on stuff like that, and I'm living proof that like they have. So all parties have signed all of the documents in the contract, and then we have a ratification date on the contract as well. That's what ratified is. Anything other than that, it's not ratified. So once you get ratified, you're going to send over your contract to the title company of the buyer's choice, lender, to the other agent, and then to your client. So you're going to send out all of these emails to make sure that all parties who need the contract have it. And then you're going to work on putting all the due dates on your calendar. You're going to schedule all inspections, that you need: home, radon, termite, well, septic, chimney, whatever your client has signed off on. Next step after that is going to be your appraisal. And then it turns in from, once you get through those big rocks, inspection and appraisal, it then becomes up to the lender and title company to get you to settlement.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Real quick. So you said, so the inspection, do we as a agent schedule that, or did the client schedule that? The home inspection.
So, let me answer this. You can schedule it. So here's the thing: I schedule it, and like every other agent that that I know, I've scheduled it. Here's the thing: so you can't just let's just say that you have a preferred inspector, and having a preferred inspector doesn't mean that you get a kickback every time you send somebody to them. And you want to send your client to them. You can want to do that, but in the state of Maryland, it is the buyer's choice who they use. So the language that I always use with people is, do you have an inspector in mind? And if not, would you like to use one of our preferred inspectors?
Okay.
Hang on, let somebody in. I'm using my left hand and I'm not left-handed. And then I follow that up with, I'm not sure what that just meant. I'm sorry. It's like asking me questions on Zoom and I don't know what that means. And then I followed up with, if they say, oh, you can just use your preferred inspector, I say, great. Would you like me to schedule it for you, or would you like to schedule it?
Okay, I got it.
Yeah, 99% of the time they're going to say, you go ahead and do it. The only one where it gets kind of, I don't know, weird is the right answer, or like the right word, but like if they want to use their own inspector, I will tell you that 99% of the time, if they have their own inspector, that they're going to want to order it. One thing that I do tell people who want to use their own inspector, for example, I ask them, I say, is that somebody you've worked with before? And most of the time they'll say, well, no, it was my neighbor's friend's sister's brother who used this person and they said that they were good. Or I found them on Facebook. I always tell people that they need to do their due diligence and that they need to do their own research on that person and to ask that inspector to send them a copy of their home inspection report and what it looks like. Because there are some and like I tell people, I'm like, it's kind of like when, you go and get your hair done, like you get what you pay for. And so it's like with inspectors, you 100% get what you pay for. You pay $100, you're not going to get something that's very good or clear. And at the end of the day, that really affects you guys as well, because when you have to write a repair request for your client and the report is just like incredibly useless, or like it's like, CSTT not correct. Like, what does that mean? I mean, I know what it means. It mostly means that like it's not bonded. But just ask them questions to help guide them in the right direction, because then all of a sudden they'll go, oh my God, I didn't think about that. And it's bad. So, but yeah, so just make sure you're giving out disclaimers. Most people will always use who you trust. Most people will always want you to schedule their inspections for them. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
It's probably more than you asked for, but there you go. Okay, and so after we get through appraisal, after we get through financing, then that's whenever we get to the closing table. Okay, so who is involved in a transaction? Can anybody tell me people who are involved in a transaction? Just unmute, just start yelling it out.
The buyer, the seller, the listing agent or brokerage.
Appraiser.
The lender, the title company.
Huh? Who else?
Survey.
Uh-huh, that's good. What else? We just talked about them.
Inspector?
Inspector.
Yep. So you're going to have your client, you have you're going to have the other agent, their client, you're going to have the lender, the title company, the appraiser, you're going to have however many inspectors that that you have. You're going to have the surveyor, if the buyer chooses to have a survey done, which I highly recommend that they do. And then you're also going to have your homeowner's insurance adjuster. While you will never have contact with them, that's just another person who plays into this, because they always have to go out to the house to, make sure it's not burned down and that, it's still there. But yes, you guys are correct. So it's a lot of people that you are working with and managing during the process. Any questions about that? Okay, so a couple of things to think of with your timeline for a contract is, what is the first thing your buyer needs? What do the buyers need to know and do? What do I need to know and do? What does the rest of the team, co-op agent, inspectors, lenders, need to know, take action on, and when? What am I doing at each point to bulletproof the transaction and set myself and my buyers up for a successful close? So the first thing that your buyer is going to need once they go under contract is a phone call from you congratulating them that they are now under contract of the home of their dreams. And then you're going to send that contract to them. Let me show you something. So I'll show you what it looks like for my stuff. That's my personal drive, so that's why we're seeing my kids' school come up. Okay. Oh, here. So what you're going to want to do is this same exact thing, right? You're going to want to create these contract templates to like send out to everybody. It's going to save you time, and it's going to help, you know, keep you organized with all of this. Okay, so in here, so it just says, congratulations on your contract. It was a pleasure to speak with you. And then obviously this, because it's me, you know, I just remind them who I am in the transaction. I always attach a copy of their contract to this email, as well as a copy of their buyer agency agreement. One, they should have a copy of that anyway, but the other reason why it's good to have that is because when they take a look at their Alta closing statement before they are towards the end, or their closing disclosure, either one, they're the exact same thing, just formatted differently. And they see your flat fee to your brokerage of whatever, that amount is. I mean, I've seen them go all the way up to like $1,500. They could question it and say, well, what is that? I didn't agree to that. You refer them back to the buyer agency agreement to make sure that they see that it is in there and that they signed it. So just make sure that they have a copy of it so you can remind them of that should it ever come up. Next thing that I put in there is about the earnest money deposit. So I tell them, and I change this when I do it, that they can either drop off the earnest money check or they can wire the money to wherever it's going to, office or title company. We used to tell them that they could mail it in, but the United States Postal Service is not, is not terribly great at all. And it takes forever, stuff gets lost, and the time frames to get these checks to where they need to go is much smaller than they used to be. So I tell them that they can do either. And if it's a wire, I connect them with whoever it needs to send them the wiring instructions, so that way they can get those. I put in there all of the important dates that they need to remember: contract acceptance date, mortgage application, loan commitment, inspections, pre-settlement walkthrough. I always leave TBD in there, but I keep that in there so that way they know that that's part of the process, and then the settlement date. Inspections. So again, I always have the phone call first, because then when they say yes, just use your people, I don't care, whatever day you want to do is fine. I schedule that, and then I use this part right here to let them know when their inspection is scheduled for, who it's scheduled with, and what inspections they're getting. Title company, same thing. I talked to them about, again, in Maryland, it's buyer's choice, like by law, it's their choice as to who they want to use. I give the same spiel. my uncle's brother's sister's cousin does title work, and I think I want to use them. And I say, okay. I said, I always ask for permission to give my opinion. I don't ever say, this is what you should do. And I was asked them, would you like my opinion on this? They always say yes. And I tell them, would you consider working with one of our preferred title companies? And I'll tell you why. Our title company that we work with will do anything that I want anytime that I ask them. Because we have a relationship. The title company that you might want to use may not do that, and everything is time sensitive. If you still want to use them, great, but I just want to make you aware of that. And sometimes they use them, sometimes they don't, but I always just like put that in their ear because it's the truth. It's the same way with lenders. And then, if you have any questions, just let me know. So I have a canned email for the buyer, the co-op, the lender, and the title company. Okay, so that's the first thing that you are doing with the buyer, congratulating them, sending them the contract, getting the inspection set up, and getting title company picked. From there, then your other emails can go out to the lender. You tell the lender, here's the contract, and here's the title company that they're using. To the co-op, you're telling them, here's the title company. Give them contact information. Don't just say Universal Title, because Universal Title has a lot of different offices, and they have no idea which one that you're going to use. And then tell them about the inspections. We have well and septic scheduled for Friday, March 31st at 8 a.m. Give all the specifics and all the details. You need the approval, you need current access instructions, and you need to make sure that water and electric are on. Otherwise, if they're not, and the inspector has to come back out, there's a fee to do that. Okay, so all that's now sent out. What do the buyers need to know? So they need to know that they need to, A, get that earnest money into wherever it's being held, title company or office. They need to do that, and they need to pay the inspectors. And I tell them, that's all you have to do right now, and then show up to the inspection. So giving them clear direction helps with the amount of questions that they're gonna have. Just try to stay ahead of them with all of those kinds of things. What do you need to know and do as the agent? You need to be incredibly familiar with your contract. So, for example, if in the listing, the seller put in the remarks that they will pay for a 1-year home warranty for the buyer, pay attention to that. If there is ground rent, it says it on the listing, that there's ground rent, but they never put any ground rent addendum or anything in the contract, make sure it gets in there. And just what the terms are, because the more familiar you are with the terms, the easier it's going to be for you to remember every step that you need to take and when, in conjunction with putting that stuff on your calendar. Oh my gosh, I need to stop touching it. Okay, what does the rest of the team, co-op, agent, inspectors, lenders need to know, take action on, and when? One thing that is helpful for the title company is if your seller or if your buyer is out of state and needs a remote signing, or if your seller wants to pre-sign. Buyers are not allowed to pre-sign. They have to sign on the data settlement. So that's important to make sure that title companies do know that. Who the main point of contact is throughout the contract, that's more important for title company and you and stuff like that. because there are some people who are just completely silent and just will sign documents. Um, inspectors, what the access instructions are for the home, that the inspections are approved, and any information that would be helpful. For example, your buyer says, hey, when the inspector goes to the house, I noticed that there was like, it smelled super musty in the master, in the, oh no, what else to say, primary bedroom's closet. I will tell that to the inspector, can you please make sure that you really look at that, because they called that out and that's important to them. So anything like like that, or concerns that like the buyer has, direct them in whichever way, or to whoever should be handling them. I don't ever answer questions. That is not my lane. So if they start asking me questions about, like, the lender's asking me for this paperwork, what am I supposed to do? I wrap them right into an email with the lender and I say, can you help them with what they need? Okay, what am I doing at each point to bulletproof the transaction and set myself and my buyers up for a successful close? Be familiar with that contract. Make sure that all your T's are crossed and all your I's are dotted. Put that contract through compliance the second you go under contract. And then when it comes out of compliance, fix those things ASAP. Because, right, you don't want to end up like that one seller where the buyer was like, no, thank you, because you missed an initial and we're allowed to get out. And then meet all of your contingency dates in the contract. Do not miss any of those. And if you think that you're going to miss them, you need more time, write an extension and have all parties sign it so that way you're covered. Because don't think for a second that like, you can just kind of be like, well, nobody's really going to care if we miss the loan commitment. They will. Any questions on that part from anybody? Okay. Okay, buyer timeline. Inspector list to the buyer. Again, this is if like, you have like, a list of preferred inspectors that like, you want to send to them so that way they can do their own research. You certainly can do that. Every agent that I work for has one inspector that they really like. So like, they don't have a list. I have an inspector that I really like, and I mean, I would never let anybody else do an inspection for me but him. Earnest money. This is the buyer making sure that earnest money gets to the title company or to your office, whoever's holding it, by the due date. Inform the listing agent of the inspection schedule. The other thing that I do when scheduling inspections, not only do I tell them in an email, these are when the inspections are due, I also go into showing time and I schedule the inspections via showing time. Because if I get an approval from showing time for however many inspections, but I don't hear back from the agent, then we can still go because like the sellers approved it. But if you send an email to another agent and they don't respond with, yes, you are approved, you cannot go to that house. Even if it's vacant, don't show up at that house. You have to get it in writing from them or have the approval done through showing time. I do both because I'm paranoid. So I just want to make sure that, I know that it's okay to go. Inspections, buyer agent, listing agent, and inspector, everybody knows what's going on. Send inspections response over to the listing agent. I don't know who I can see. Stephanie and Yvonne, are you guys in Maryland? Are you guys all in Maryland?
I am.
Okay.
Katrina.
I am.
I'm in Maryland.
Ma'am,
Where were you? I just heard a guy say something.
He's in Maryland.
Maryland, okay. Okay. I just didn't want to talk about something if you guys aren't in Maryland. So getting that inspection response over to the other agent by the due date, when the appraisal is due and final walkthrough. With that appraisal is due, back in the day, a couple years ago, there used to be a due date on the financing addendum that like the appraisal had to be done by a certain date. It's not that way anymore. If you look at FHA conventional or VA, you won't find a due date on that. Now, what you can have is that, you know, once you check in with the lender, hey, what's the status of the appraisal? Like, you know, where are we? Most of the time, the appraisers can say, it's been scheduled and it's due back to our office around the 17th. So that kind of gives you a timeline, but there's no hard due date anymore. The only due date that you have is if like there is, there's like the property's underappraised, then like, you know, you have however many days you agree to reach out to the other agent to let them know and then to negotiate, but there's no due date for the appraisal itself. Then you have your final walkthrough of the property and then you go to closing. Inspection period ends, closing. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about the timeline itself? Again, you go under contract, you call your client, go through inspections, title company, and sending the EMD in. You schedule the inspections and send all emails out to lender, title company, and the other agent. Get approval on those inspections. Go to the inspection. Do the property inspections notice. People call it PIN if you don't know, like that like people refer to it as that, and it's all in capital letters, PIN. And then wrap that up. The appraisal occurs. The lenders and underwriters work on the file to get all conditions cleared. You get your loan commitment. You schedule settlement and walkthrough, and that's the end of it. So those are like your big rocks that like you're going to go through on the contract.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah.
But is it regarding inspection again? It's kind of more going into it. Like, so once the inspection report comes back, do you advise your client to include all the no? Okay, you okay. Just the stuff that they feel is necessary.
So this is what, you know, this is what we tell people to focus on. We tell people to focus on safety issues,
Okay.
structural issues. So like, for example, so like, it depends on who you use, like how long the inspection is going to be. Most of them, you know, they're going to have where it's like the summary, and the summary is going to have the major defects. Now, when you read that major defects part, like as an agent, you're thinking, oh my God, like that is not a major defect, especially like the more that like you do them. But if it's like for like electrical, like, you know, you'll see faceplate on outlet is loose, or, you know, needs a faceplate covering, or needs a, like, you know, a junction box, or stickers on the electrical panel are missing. And the buyers will want that done. And it's not that they're wrong. I just tell people, here's the deal. I said, if you go into this asking for the world, you're going to get nothing, because you could offend the seller. And they're going to be like, you can kick rocks. I had 4 other people in line for this house. So we tell them to write out a list. The list should be your items that you must have repaired. And if they're not repaired, you are going to put in a release and you're going to walk away from that house.
Stephanie,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Denise got knocked out and she wants to be let back in.
Oh, where is she? Okay, you know what? Because my thing is different now. Hold on. Y'all, like, I am horrible with technology. Like my 10-year-old, I probably will have to call him down here.
You're not the only one.
It's like, it's embarrassing. Oh, wait a minute, hold on. Nope, that's just showing you guys. Why isn't it doing it? I'm trying, it's changing the views, but it's not getting me back to like the full screen. You guys can see this, right? You guys can see you.
Yes.
What am I missing? Who's good with this? Nobody?
I didn't see anything change.
Oh, wait a minute, what's that? No. Hold on. That was already there. I know I didn't either.
Denise, Denise Cumberland, that wasn't you, right, that sent that email?
No, not me. I'm still here.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're there.
I did send one. Yvonne sent one, I guess, yesterday because it got kicked out yesterday.
Right, no, this is tonight. It says, can someone tell the host to let me in? I got knocked out a while ago.
Yeah, I see it on the email.
You do? Okay, all right, wait, hold on. I'm Charity, the answer to your question is yes. I will, if you guys put your, here. Write down actually, I'll put it in the notes. All right, so somebody still needs to be let in, right? Oh my God, this is terrible.
I told her to try to log back in and maybe, maybe she can try again and you can catch it.
Okay. Something with participants. I'm sorry, guys. If you email me, I'll send you the templates that I have for the intro emails, as well as the emails to closing for everybody. So that way that you have them. Okay. So with the inspection, so I tell people to do a list. And what I tell them to do is that they do it on a Google Doc. So, okay. So you do it on a Google Doc. And, okay, so all of this down here are the buyer's notes. My notes are in red to kind of just go back and forth with it. So initially on the Google Doc, we do like the date, the buyer seller and address, and then that same verbiage, and I will share this with you if you want it. And that same verbiage about all the repairs must be completed by the appropriate licensed contractors. Make sure you write that, because if not, they're just going to hire some Joe Schmo to come in and a handyman, which doesn't mean that they don't know what they're doing, but their work isn't licensed and backed up to do it. And if you're doing electrical, you want a licensed electrician. Do not have somebody like handyman or anything do that. So you have them right here on this document, the different sections. The one section should be the items that like the seller has got to do. And if they don't agree to do any or all of them, the buyer is going to walk. Second section is going to be the items that the buyer would really like to have done, but they're okay if they're not. Then the third section, which I never make them do, are like the things that like are, put a faceplate on the outlet kind of thing. So then from there, you chunk that down with the buyer themselves, right? And make sure that you understand what they're asking for. The buyer can't ask for anything that is not in any of the inspection reports. So if they feel like that they saw something, well, like the inspector missed this like water spot on the ceiling, it's not going to happen because it's not called out in their report. So for me, this is incredibly helpful. One, because you share this with them, you see them writing in real time. And then I copy what they say put it underneath, and then I write all of my, my notes. You chunk it down, and then like, you come up with this list that, that's like up here. Okay.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I can share this with you as well, if you want it.
Is she still trying to get in?
Oh, hold on, let's see. So participants, meeting room. Oh my God, there we go. Hold on.
She's in. She's in. I think I saw her.
Yay!
I think so. I think I saw her.
You guys that just got in, I'm sorry. I am completely like not good with like this whole Zoom thing. Okay, any other questions about like repairs? Because I mean, like that's probably one of the biggest parts that is the hardest to get used to, and it takes a lot of fine tuning to get the language correct and to make sure that what you're asking for covers your buyer. For example, let's just say that that like on the roof, that there's an issue with like one of like the boots on the roof or whatever. You always want to say, like, have a licensed roofing contractor evaluate and repair or replace the boot and like on the roof to ensure that there is no more leaking. Just like if you say, well, just repair it and it kind of needed to be replaced, they're only going to do what you ask them to do. So I always ask them to either repair, replace to ensure that, that like there's no more moisture in the basement and like, any more water coming in from like, the outside, like to the inside of the basement. Because I will tell you that we've had it plenty of times where an agent will call and they'll say, well, they didn't do blah, blah, blah. And we'll say, that's not what you asked. But that's what they wanted, but that's not what you asked. So just be really careful. And if you ever have any questions about how to write something up, the best person for you to go to is the home inspector. They will tell you exactly what it is that like, you should be saying, which is why you should find somebody that, you really click with and you like and you trust.
I was taught to use the what's in the report, the wording from the report.
You can, so the
items that were imperative to be fixed that the buyer wanted to fix.
Got it. So like whatever the like the inspector writes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's a good comment. So so the inspector that I really like, his reports are so detailed. I literally just copy it, paste it, but like I change some words around, right? I mean, it still says the same thing, but like it would read weird if I didn't change some words. There are other inspectors that it's like, you literally can't copy what they said because it makes zero sense. Like you understand what they're trying to say, but like, if it doesn't make sense to you, like it's definitely going to not make sense to the other agent and to the person who's fixing the stuff. So again, yes, find somebody that you really like. And like, I don't know where you guys are in Maryland, but I can certainly give you the guy that I like. He's really good. But I could put that in there if you want to use him, great. And if you don't, that's okay too. But his reports are good. Any other questions on that? Anybody?
Who is it? Who's your guy?
So his name is Rick Saylor, Saylor. And his company, it's R as in Roger, C as in cat, S as in Sam, inspections. Okay, his number is 443-605-3137. And he responds really quickly to text. I mean, like, that's actually how, like, you know, how I communicate with him. And he does home, radon, and termite, just FYI.
What's the name again? I miss it. I miss the name.
Oh yeah, no worries. Rick Saylor, S is in Sam, AYLOR. And then a good well and septic company is Homeland Environmental. They do well and septic inspections as well as radon. And then for, I'm sorry, go ahead. I thought someone was gonna say something. And then I use Clean Sweep, Maryland, for chimney inspections. Now, they are great for, this is them right here. They are great for inspections, and I always tell people this, they're wonderful. However, when you see their pricing for like repairs, you're gonna pass out. And I'm like, don't pay attention to that. Like, just get the inspection with them and then, you know, go from there. So yeah, so that's them. I'm trying to think. And depending on where you guys, oh, and then another, depending on where you are in Maryland, if you ever need a septic contractor to go out for your cellar or whatever, I use these guys. They're really good. Earl J. Preston, they're good. Their information is right there. If you want that.
So
And
most of these guys that you're talking about, they're over there on the Western Shore. They're not on the Eastern Shore.
Correct. However, I'm almost positive that Homeland will go over to the Eastern Shore. I will tell you a home inspector that will go to the Eastern Shore because he goes to Ocean City for us. His name is Matt Knight, Knight. No, I can't find any sheets. Hold on. Okay, he is. Oh, and there's Rick Saylor's inspection prices if you want to know. Okay, Matt's number is 443-275-3667. So he for sure goes over to the Eastern Shore. Rick might, I don't know for sure. And then Homeland, I believe, will go over there as well. If you have any well and septics over there, I can't imagine that you do. Like right across the bridge, I guess. Okay. Any other inspectors you guys want or may need? Those are like the basics. Homeland does mold inspections too, just FYI, if you want that. Okay, so, and if you have more questions about inspections, just tell me and I'll answer whatever you have. Okay, so common interaction points. So communication of deadlines, communication of contract to other parties, such as title and lending, lender and buyer communication, communication of a list or lists of recommended title companies, inspectors, and insurance agents, scheduling and communication with inspectors and listing agents, and sending amendments or inspection reports to the other side title, and lending. Now, I'm gonna start with that bottom sentence. Do not send any inspection report to the lender. Do not do that. If you send an inspection report to a lender,
You mess up the loan.
the seller's got to fix it all because they won't get that loan. So don't do it. Now, if like every once in a while, I think it's I can't remember the name of it. It's some special kind of inspection that has to be done, and only certain home inspectors are qualified to do it. Rick is one of them. RQS or something. Rick is qualified to do it, and I think Matt is too. The lender will ask you to send over the inspection report for that one. That's okay. That will happen to you once every 500 transactions. Do not send those over. The only one that you would have to send over is the termite inspection, and you only need to do that for FHA loans and VA loans. That's it. Okay, so communication of deadlines. So you're really in charge of all of these deadlines. Because, so for example, a lot of lenders, when you reach out and you say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Lender, can you send me the loan commitment? It's due today per the contract. You will get a lot of, like, you know, we haven't cleared all conditions. And I tell them, I don't care. I just want the loan commitment right now, even if it shows the conditions. But even if they won't send it, you need to get an extension for that. Again, application, make sure that's done. I have lenders who I'll send a contract to, they won't respond. And I'll keep reaching out, and finally they're like, oh yeah, it's been done. That was lack of communication on their part. So just, you've got to pay attention to them, make sure those earnest money deposits are at wherever they're supposed to go. And make sure that you communicate any issues with all parties as needed. So one of the things that is probably the most frustrating for all agents is when you have an agent on the other side that doesn't keep you in the loop and who doesn't communicate. And all you're doing is chasing them like, what's going on? You know, settlements in 2 days. I've been asking you for a week, you know, what the settlement information is. That's usually a red flag that something's wrong. Or I need the loan commitment, or where is this? It's incredibly frustrating. So I always treat people the way that like I want to be treated, even though that's not always the way that it is. But you're going to have a smoother transaction if you do that, and you're going to get more grace from other agents if you do that. It's the second that you keep people in the dark, because a lot of people are afraid to tell the truth, are afraid that people are going to get mad. They're only going to get real mad whenever you don't tell them. So just keep that line of communication open. Open. Same thing with like extensions. If you know an extension is needed for the settlement and all parties haven't signed, send an email to the title and title company and lender and say, hey, just want to let you know we are going to be pushing this, just FYI. So giving people those heads up really makes a difference. So that way nothing is lost, throughout the way. When am I reminding the buyers to not make big purchases? Does anybody know a time or the reason why to not make a big purchase when they're under contract?
It affects your debt to income
And then what happens?
and also your cash that you
Yep.
have, if they don't charge it, then you don't get the loan, you don't close.
Exactly.
Deal fall through.
Exactly. So we we had a buyer. I love them dearly. Like, they work with us a lot. They signed their documents. They got it from the table. They went to the furniture store. They put $5,000 worth of furniture on credit. Within that first 24 hours, their credit is still monitored by the lender. It dinged the lender. The lender called them and said, what did you just do? They told him, and he said, you've got to go return all of it. Otherwise, like, you don't get this house. So we tell people, do not do that. Don't buy a car. Don't buy furniture. People ask me if they're allowed to buy groceries because they have a big family. And I said, well, of course you can do that. But yes,
Yeah, it's funny. Well, the way the grocery expense is now, food
I
market is
know.
going up.
I know. It's just me and my son. And I spent like $300 at Harris Teeter. I was like, good God, I hope this comes with a chef. But yeah, so just remind them of that. Their lender should be doing the same thing. But tell them you can buy all the furniture you want 24 hours after you close. You can buy a car, you can buy a yacht. I don't care. All right, so when am I communicating when to set up utilities and how to do it? Does anybody know?
Do you use a company to do that? Some, I don't know, or you just do it yourself?
So,
Repeat the
reach-
question.
it was about utilities and when and like what to tell buyers and when to tell them about utilities.
They want to take care of it, the week before, or the week of, excuse me, but like the beginning of the week of the date is, they're going to close. I
Correct.
can't exact days, but
So in my canned email for settlement, so like this is my email to the buyers for settlement. And it tells them, so the title company will take care of transferring water for all buyers, obviously not if they have well. So they will transfer the water from the current seller over to the new buyer. The buyer has to transfer the electric into their name the day of settlement. The seller has to transfer, not stop, transfer the electric out of their name the day after settlement. The reason why there's that overlap is because if the seller stops it on the day of settlement, tomorrow, the 17th, and the buyer starts it, there's no telling like if like they're going to happen at the same time. So like the power could be shut off and that's a different process for them. So the buyer does it the day of, the seller does it the day after. And then obviously they do their own cable, internet, all that kind of stuff. But so that is on there. And now if you're on the Eastern Shore or whatever, obviously it's not BG&E. So like you'd put whoever was in there. Okay. Am I communicating notice of any holidays that may delay the process? The answer is yes. So when you're writing an offer, be mindful of any upcoming holidays. Where it gets real like hairy is around November and into December, for like Christmas and stuff like that, and the New Year. So you have to take into account that like the title and the lender is going to be out of commission for a set number of days. And I would ask them before you, as you're writing the offer, call the buyer's lender and say, hey, this is this transaction is going to fall in November and December. What days are you guys not going to be in commission? So that way you can then add on extra days to that settlement date because of that. Otherwise, if you're doing a 30-day close, which is normal, but the lender's going to be out for 4 or 5 days, you're really trying to do a 25-day close, and that doesn't give anybody a lot of time. So be realistic with your timeline and just be mindful of days that are closed and things like that. And that you're not writing a contract closing on Saturday or Sunday, which happens all the time. Because that can happen. And I would also tell the buyer that I would tell them, listen, this is why we have to add on more days and things like that. So that way they're aware as to why it's not a 30-day close because their neighbors had a 30-day close. How do I negotiate the inspection report, and when am I communicating this information? So I talked to you about how to get your client to tell you what it is that they want to ask for, how you wordsmith that, and hopefully, like, you get a good inspector, you can just copy it and change a couple of words. And then you send that, and then any of the reports that pertain to it over to the other agent. The seller, once they receive it, has 5 days to respond to that repair request. So weekends are included on that. If you're the listing agent, what I do is that, like, let's just say that the deadline for the repair request is on a Thursday. You get it Thursday at 11:58 p.m. Now, that means that, like, on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, Friday's fine, but Saturday and Sunday, you're going to be having to work on a repair request. And, like, response. You might have to have contractors come out. I always, in that case, I send out an extension for all parties to sign to extend the seller's response time to, 7 or 8 days, because you never know if you're going to be able to get contractors out on a weekend, kind of thing. That's what I do. And then once the seller responds, the buyer has 2 days to respond to that response. And again, I mean, it's what your buyer wants. I would try to keep them, we can't tell them what to do, but definitely try to keep them in, like, the mindset of, like, not freaking out and things like that, because inspectors can make things bigger than sometimes they are. Okay, when do I touch base with the lender, title company, or listing agent? Does anybody know when? Anybody?
I need you to repeat the question.
Oh,
Sorry.
sure. When do you as I, touch base with the lender, title company, or listing agent?
I would say the week before closing.
Just the week before?
I think throughout the whole entire
I think-
transaction.
Yeah, me too. I was
I
gonna say
think-
all the time.
I would say
All
as soon as
the
you're
time.
under, before, but definitely as soon as you're under contract.
Yes. The person that you are going to hound, but bug is the lender the most, right? Like, where's the appraisal? Like, what are the conditions? What is this? And then from there, you're, then communicating that information to the other agent, and then with the title company, like, is the lien cert in? Lien certs usually take 2 weeks for, like, Baltimore City to come in. So yeah, so the answer is you are always
Communication.
communicating. With that?
I was saying it's a lot of communication. I know when I was working with the buyer, I had to do a lot of communicating with the lender and the listing agent.
Yes. You'll be sick of talking by the end of the day. At least I'm sick of talking by the end of the day. So yeah, so all the time. Okay. Documentation point. All right. Is there an act of communication or a document? Is there an act of communication or a document? I have no idea what they're talking about. I'm gonna be perfectly honest.
Is that asking, do I need to talk to somebody, or do I need to send them a letter? Is that what it's asking?
That's actually a good point. Yes,
It says, is this, like there's
Yeah.
something that
So
we should
something has,
see.
maybe something has happened, and which one is better, just to tell either whatever side you're on about it, or does a document need to be created? I think that's what they're asking, but I'm not sure.
I think you're correct. And let's go with that scenario, because I think that's good. All right, so whenever you communicate with any of the parties, how do you deliver bad news?
On the phone.
Mhm. Correct. And then you followed up with an email.
Email.
Don't always pick up the phone when there is some kind of bad news. For example, I will tell you one thing that like I've seen really upsets agents is like if the home inspection went really bad, like real bad, and the buyer's agent sends over a release, and along with the inspection reports and the pin that says that like they want to get out, and they don't pick up the phone and call the agent, it's just not professional to do that. And it's one of those things where like if you were on the listing side, right, and somebody did that to you, the first thing I would think of is like, why didn't we have a conversation? Could this have been saved? Like, you have no idea if like my seller would have done everything that your buyer asked for, right? So, and even if the answer is, I don't care if they would like bulldoze it, knock it down and build a new one, they still don't want this house. At least you're like communicating, because more than likely you're going to work with these agents again. And they remember stuff. And also with that too, just keep in mind, with those inspection reports are releasing from a contract. So if you have the buyer and they go to the home inspection and they're like, oh my God, you need to, light this house on fire. And they're like, I want to run. You say, no problem. Like, you sure that's what you want to do? Yes. Call the other agent and say, it did not go well. My buyers want to release. Do you want me to send you the home inspection reports? Some will say yes, and some will say no. For me on the listing side, I say no, thank you. Does anybody know why I would say no, thank you for the buyer's agent to send me the home inspection reports?
Because then you have to disclose it for the next person who buys it.
Exactly. So by law, so the buyer has to disclose it. But even if the buyer was like, no, I don't want to, because then nobody will buy my house. By law, you have to disclose every single thing that is in that home inspection report. Everything, not just the latent like major defects. Now the buyer can get around that by saying, okay, well, I don't want to do it. You have to. I fire you and I'll go work with another agent and I won't tell them. They can get around it that way. But I always like to just show courtesy to other agents and ask them if they want it or not. And again, some say yes and some say no. I always say no. So that's what I do.
So you say no because you will have to disclose it because you know.
Because, right, exactly. Because
it can come against you if you don't.
Correct. If I don't have the report, like nothing can come back because like,
yeah.
I don't know what's in that report. I have no idea what's in that report. So that's why I tell them no. Now, unless the seller says, yes, I want the reports because I want to see it, then obviously like, I would ask for them and then send it over to them. But usually the seller doesn't want it either. So any questions on that?
So why would they want to put on the market a house that cannot be sold? I don't know.
What if they have the report?
Yes, they have the report and they are supposed to report it. So because here the purposely know that the house is not good and the purposely decide not to disclose it and they want a foolish person to fall into it. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, so one of those things like, if like the seller doesn't have it, and like, here's the deal. You have no idea if what's in that report is actually as bad as somebody is saying that it is. I've seen reports and people are like, oh my God, this house is terrible. And I'm like, no, it's not. Like, I've seen worse. So like, with the seller, like, they also don't want to like, have to have that in their hands. I mean, every seller knows that like there's going to be issues with their home kind of thing. But a lot of them don't want it because of that reason. Now, if they know of any latent defects of the house that like people can't, see or ascertain, by just walking through, they have to disclose that kind of stuff. But if it's that, like, you know, the dryer needs to be vented properly or stuff like that, that's not a latent defect. But if they got the report, they would have to disclose all of those kinds of things, like, you know, like there's a chip in the tile, things like that.
But can you, as the seller agent, can you advise the seller, I mean, come to agreement that whatever in it, if the buyer accept to share the cost, I mean, bring her to accept that that type of proposal, like, okay, it's better for you so that you sell your house, because whoever comes in this house will have a problem with it. So therefore, yeah, let's see what is in, and whatever is in, we share. You know, you share with the person the cost. She's better off like that.
Exactly. 100%. 100%. You know, I mean, I think for the most part, right? Like, you know, you're going to have houses that you're going to, you know, list and represent, and like from the outside looking in or inside looking out, like they look fine, right? I mean, it's not like you're like, oh my God, like the ceiling is dropping, like all the things. But if there's definitely things that, like, you know, you can see that it's not really well maintained and the seller is willing to fix those things, then yes, then, like, you know, again, sellers will say, well, I do want to see the report, because like I will fix a bunch of stuff if like that means that I can sell it to like the next buyer for sure.
Okay.
But if the seller doesn't want it,
Yes.
then I don't ask for it, because if I ask for it now, I have to disclose it. I only do what I'm told. Okay, so are there templates for this so that I can create to save effort and streamline communication across transactions? So I have my canned emails for, like I said, for the intro, for the settlement, and then I don't have any canned emails for like the, you know, is the appraisal in, things like that. I just know my due dates and I keep track of all of that, and then I'm constantly reaching out to people, you know, for that information. Okay. This is the same timeline that we looked at before, so I guess we're going on to something else.
I have one question.
Yeah.
I didn't see anything about like once a seller complete the repairs and stuff like that, they got to give you like the receipts and stuff like that. When do you request those things?
So in, let me see if I can find it. Okay, here. So in my Google Doc,
Okay.
and I'll show you how, like, kind of how I like what I do. So we tell them all repairs to be completed with the by the appropriate licensed contractors, work scope pictures and receipts with any applicable warranties to be provided to the buyer at least 5 days prior.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Now, the reason why like, you know, we pick the number 5 is because, and you can do, you know, 7 days, like whatever you want, is because
Okay.
we give our buyers the option to have a re-inspection done with the inspector who originally did it, to re-inspect the items that the seller agreed to have done. So
Okay.
that way, like, you know, the inspector can get back out. It's usually like another $125. The inspector goes back out, you give them the signed repair request and the receipts, and they go through and they check everything. And then they'll do a report that says either everything is great or these things were wrong and like need to be corrected. That then gives the seller time, because you send that to the other agent, that gives the seller time to have those things corrected. So
Okay. I think a lot of agents like to play around with that part. Meaning like don't, or play like, you know, I can't get the receipt, or I don't know. I always have a lot of issues.
Yeah.
As a headache around that time. So thank you.
yeah, no, so one thing that I have a really hard time with is that it's the agents that you ask for the receipts and you get the receipt. And what I tell our sellers is, so for example, where if like we had the seller and this was the buyer, and it says fasten the additional supports that have been installed in place and properly support stair stringers. The licensed contractor that comes out, I say to him, her, whatever it is, I need your receipt to match exactly what was asked for. You need to do that, but your receipt needs to say fastened the additional supports that have been installed in place and I properly supported the stair stringers. Because nothing's worse than like getting a receipt and you're like, I don't even know what this says. First of all, it's like, you know, it's like handwritten by, you know, death row inmate and like I can't even read it. And like you're like, I don't understand what this repair was. And two, I tell them that they have to have their company name and license number on it. I get lots of receipts where there's no license number, this stuff doesn't add up, or you look up the person, their person's license and like it's not legit anymore, kind of thing. So that's what I find is like the biggest like struggle with these receipts. For the most part, it turns out okay, but just make sure all of that information is on there for your client.
Oh.
Did I answer your question? I just want to make sure I did.
Yes, you did.
Okay. So what I do with that property inspections notice, so what I would do is, I swear I'm really good at my job. I'm just terrible at stuff.
You don't use DocuSign?
Huh?
You don't use DocuSign?
It depends on like which agent I'm working for. But the same template should be in there for you. So what I do is with that, I pull this up. No, if I have to get my 10-year-old down here, he's gonna. Okay, so I open this up. It fills in all the information, right? Like at the top. I check off every single inspection that has been done, right? So radon, chimney, whatever. Check B, and then in here I say C addendum A, okay? So I save this, and then I save this Google Doc as a PDF, and I put it in this folder or in like, you know, your stuff in DocuSign. I have the buyer sign both, and then I send it over. Otherwise, you got to cram all that stuff in here, and it just doesn't work, and it's just too small, and things could be missed. So like, I don't want to ever take that risk. So that's how I write those things up, again, with those Google Docs. Okay, who is involved in the transaction? We've already talked about this. So a seller transaction involves more than just you and the seller. There are many people you are responsible for bringing into the transaction. It is your responsibility to set high standards and keep them in the conversation loop. So if I'm on the listing side, I go directly to the source when I need information. So if like, you know, I'm the listing agent and I need to know, is the appraisal in? Is the appraisal ordered? Anything. I don't go through the buyer's agent for them to go to the lender, because I'm incredibly impatient and I just want the answer. So like, I go directly to people whenever I need answers, and you'll get them much faster. I mean, I've had people ask me to, like, you know, we have the buyer and they're like, can you schedule my seller signing? And I said, no, like, you have the title company's information. I can give that to you. But but like I, as a listing agent, stay in close communication and make sure that, you know, I go directly to them for anything. And they'll usually give you exactly what, like, you know, you need. I've never had any pushback, except for the appraisal. They're not going to send that to you as a listing agent. Okay. So what is the first thing that my seller needs? So so you have the seller, you're gone under contract. What's the first thing that like they need from you? They need to know, well, one, they need the contract, and two, they need to know when the inspections are. So that way they can prepare, and if there's any preparations instructions, you need to make sure that like they have that as well. Water and utilities need to be on. And then if there's prep work for the well and septic, they need to make sure that like they do that. The well and septic company will tell you what to do. And then you just need to make sure that, again, you are staying in close communication with everybody. Same story as with the buyer. Because like, it's not like you don't have as much to do on the listing side as you do on the buyer side. Obviously, like, you know, negotiating repairs and things like that, but it's not as much as on the buyer side. Okay. Okay, common points of interaction: communication of deadlines, communication of contract to other parties, communication of a list of recommended contractors, movers, cleaners, send contract to the title company, scheduling and communication with inspectors, sending amendments or inspection reports to the other side. So we already did that. Okay. Okay, so command opportunities. So I like command. I used to not like command, and I was I didn't want to use it before. But I actually like it, and I think it's very streamlined to like work with. So just make sure you keep your opportunities up to date. There's 53 of these things. Hold on. Risk avoidance. Okay, so one of the things, like whenever you're negotiating with a contract, and I know all of you know this, but like in this business, like, right, like everybody's got like, you know, a fiery personality. Everybody is like this type A, agents usually are, and some at all have chips on their shoulders. And who, you know, love to tell you 5,000 times how many deals they've done in the last 40 years. So things can kind of get to a head sometimes, but always just do what's like in the best interest of your client. You know, because clear heads are going to prevail, and like, you know, we're just not going to be able to change the agents that are the way that they are. I just had an agent argue with me about the fact that he didn't need to order 2 resale packages. And I said, you do. And he said, I don't. And we went back and forth with I do and I don't. And I said, well, we're not going to close. And it was just baffling to me, just kind of that he didn't know that. But anyways, so like, you know, obviously like you're going to deal with a lot of personalities, and I know it can be hard to not get super frustrated with other people, especially when you're trying to keep everything together. Where is the deal at risk of falling apart? The deal is at can fall apart at like any part, any portion of the contract at any time. The most likely part that it's going to fall apart is at inspections. That's where it's going to fall apart. Do your best to you know, just to talk to your client, walk them through it, make sure that like that's the best decision for them. And if it is, then you release. But really at like any point, I mean, like we've had people get to the table sitting there. We just had somebody just had one recently. It was a veteran, and something happened like with his loan, and they're all at the table, and the lender was like, we can't do this. It was really sad. But the inspections is where it's most likely to fall apart. Best practices to keep the deal alive. just make sure that, you know, you've educated yourself about different ways to save the deal and different options that you have. Because there's more than one solution to a roadblock. And just kind of, and again, you'll learn these as you kind of go through this. And like ask other agents, just say, hey, like, you know, I have this going on. Is there any way that like you were able to get through this? How did you get through it? Things like that. Okay. Always act in your client's best interest. Yes. All right. One of the best things I will tell you to do after you have closed the transaction, right? One, you do want to ask for, you know, for referrals as like, you know, from your folks. I don't know if it feels weird to you guys to do it. I know from like my perspective, it can kind of feel weird, like, you know, to ask for those. However, definitely ask for referrals because I mean, like, that's really where you're going to get like the most of your business is from like the people that like you've helped, from them recommending you and so forth. And always stay in touch with them. I mean, like, send a thank you card, check in with them at like their 1-year anniversary, you know, hi, just want to see how everything is going, just things like that, just so that way you were kept top of mind for them. And just remind them, hey, if you ever have anybody that's interested in buying or selling, like, you know, please send them my way. I would love to help them because great people like you know great people. Let's see. Do not call list. Okay, I think this is all role play. Do you guys have any questions for me about any parts of the process or how to handle anything, or anything like that that I can help with? I'm super happy to answer any questions that you have.
Yes, quick question.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just wanted to clarify. You said like when you're in the midst of a transaction and you're trying to find out certain pieces of information, most times you go directly to the source. So like if you're trying to, if appraisal's been done or what's the update on this, you go straight to like the lender or whomever needs to give that information.
Right. Yes, I do. Yeah. Again, like, you know, I don't like to go through other people and one, there it's not necessary for you to have to go through like, you know, the other agent if you're the listing agent to like go to them and say, hey, you know, I need your buyer's loan commitment, or, you know, is the appraisal in? I bypass people. And again, I go straight to the source. Now, what I will do is I'll copy the buyer's agent in the email whenever I'm saying to the lender, hey, like, you know, can you like give me a status update on the appraisal? Like, you know, where are we with that? So that way they can see what I'm doing.
Right.
But yeah, no, I go straight to the source. You'll get answers faster. I mean, like, you know, you'll get answers faster. And I feel like that you get like a clearer explanation as to what's going on. Otherwise, you're like playing this game of telephone of like, hey, what's going on with the appraisal? Like they call the lender says, well, it's all these things. And then they call you back and they're trying to explain to you. And it makes no sense. Like, yeah.
It's just better to get that from somebody who can give you a detailed explanation.
Right, because that's their job.
Right. Thank you.
I go to the one whose job it is. You're welcome. Anybody else?
Yes. Is there from Vizim with your position, your knowledge, is it current or regular to see a listing agent bullying new agent, new buyer agent in this process?
That's a good question.
And if that happen, how you as a new agent, you have to handle this, because it's your first transaction. You are moving like you don't even sometimes know what you are doing, but you are just moving. So, and the other agent is a senior, he knows, instead of telling you, or instead of maybe saying, no, shouldn't be doing that, he start bullying you, or by the time you get in touch with your coach, he start sending you nasty message or something like that. So just tell us how
to handle it. So, one, like I said, I've been doing this for 8 years and have I've closed like 2,000 plus transactions. Now, if you look me up in Bright or HomeSnap or whatever, you're going to see that I have no, nothing, because it's not inputted under my name because I'm not the agent. So I actually get bullied at times, and where I've had it from lenders and obviously like the other agents, where it's stuff like, well, if you knew this job, you would know, blah, 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 blah. And
you see,
yeah. And I'm like, oh, so I'll be honest, whenever I work with a co-op agent, anytime that a co-op agent has said to me, hey, Stephanie, thanks for the information. I really appreciate it. I'm new in this business, so, any help that, you can give is great. They say something to the effect that they're new. I actually appreciate when somebody says I'm new, because then it turns from that makes sense as to why they didn't do this, or that they didn't know that, other than maybe being like they're lazy, they're horrible at communication, whatever. And then I actually help them because we should all be on the same side of the table, because we all want the same end game to happen, right?
Yes.
Everybody wants to get paid. Everybody wants to get paid. So now it can kind of backfire sometimes, right? Because I have seen agents where they knew that one of my agents was new, and they were talking down and not telling her the right things. And so then I stepped in, and it's I don't like that kind of stuff. So if it were me, if that was the case and somebody was bullying me, and I was new, I would just say hey, I appreciate the information. I'm a newer agent, patience is appreciated, as I kind of go through this, and then just leave it alone. And then I would get with your coach or your broker and just say, hey, I need to know how to do X, or this agent's really bullying me. So, obviously cursing and name calling and stuff like that is not okay. So I would definitely go to the broker for that, but just make people aware of it. To be honest, I like when people tell me, because then I can be helpful and all that. Does that help you?
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because we were all new at one time.
Yes.
Right?
Actually, you are no longer, we are growing.
What's that?
I said we are not new, we are growing.
Yeah. Any other questions? Anything about any more questions about inspections, closing? Or I will tell you something about closing if you have any questions on that. Any other questions?
Yeah, I think we left, we was talking about all the people who are included in the transaction.
Mhm.
And I think we left one person or one group of people out, and that's about your client's family, because sometimes they be in a transaction and you be trying to guide it, and they could just be, especially when it's coming around inspection time or whatever, that's when it becomes testy waters or whatever. So,
We've had many of fathers, just destroy deals, many of fathers.
yeah.
We're always like, oh, please don't make that. Only one person's allowed. So in the communication part of it, I will only include a family member. So let's just say that there's a couple, engaged, and it's only going to be in one person's name, but they say, hey, can you include my fiance?
Yeah.
and everything, I will do that. But I always tell people for inspections, right? I always tell people like, hey, so like for your inspection, if it's 2 people on the loan, you guys can come. And if you want to bring a family member or whatever, you can do that. I'm like, this is not a family reunion. I
Right.
said, because I will tell you, it was bad. We had, I told them not to do it, and they literally brought like 8 people. It was our sellers. Sellers were fuming, and they were like, they're not coming in here. Like, our sellers and like the buyers and like the agent, they're all yelling at each other. Like it was bad. So I tell people like, this is not a family reunion. You're only allowed to have such and such people. I always set
Okay.
I always set the expectation for people. So there's no question about what we're going to do and what we're not going to do, kind of thing. Because while we might think it's common sense that like we're not going to bring like an army of people with us, right? I mean, I think all of us like have that common sense, like because we're in the business. A
Yeah.
lot of people don't, and that's not to be rude or nasty. They just have never done this before. This is their first
Yeah.
time. And for us, we've done this countless times, kind of thing. So, and then once you get them away from the family to talk about the report, because they're going to get their family's opinion, just
Yeah.
like redirect them back to what I showed you about like, okay, so like there's a lot of information. Let's chunk this down. And this is how we're going to do it. And have them write out what has to be done, or I'm going to walk. What would like be nice to have, but it's okay. The must-haves needs to be things that are safety issues, health issues, things like that. Deck is going
Okay.
to collapse. If you walk out on the deck, it's going to collapse. That's a big deal, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, so it's just about, you have to kind of take it back from the family.
Yeah, because they can, I'm trying to tell you, they seem like they know more than an inspector knows, really.
Yes, right? They do.
I for me, I try to tell them, they are home inspector, that's what they're gonna do, they're gonna find things. You're never gonna go in a house where they don't find anything. And I tell them like, I've done a new home, brand new home, and they still found some stuff. So that's what their job is, to find stuff or whatever. But then go back to what you were saying, like, well, some things are deal breakers or whatever. And I never put it in the context of safety issues and stuff like that. But now going forward, I will, or whatever, try to break it down, but small like that. But that is like you said, that's where a lot of deals fall apart right there.
Oh, 100%. 100. I mean, when you get the outside coming in, you're like, this is the kiss of death right here. It's the kiss of death. But there is a way to recover from it. Sometimes, not always, right? And it could be because like the house really is a hot mess. Like you
Yeah.
didn't see it. But like it's like the family will try to talk them into, like 2 ceiling tiles, because I've dropped ceilings down here. 2 ceiling tiles are missing. That's a major thing. No, it's not. No, it's not. That is not a safety issue. It is not a health issue. I mean, now, unless like you're going to be swinging off of it, like then maybe it's not going to hold you probably. But yeah, so keep talking about safety and like health issues, that should be the main concern.
Okay.
Yeah. And remind them, say, listen, you can put as many things on this list as you want. I'll write up whatever you want. This is your contract. I'll do whatever you want. However, and I say, may I give you my opinion, right? I always ask for permission to give my opinion, because I know when people give me their opinion and I didn't ask for it, I don't want it. But if they author it and say, well, sure, then you tell them and just say, listen, in my experience, it doesn't matter if you've done 1 house or if you've done, 15 or 0 houses. In my experience, whenever a buyer sends a seller a list that is 20 items long, like the seller normally will only pick out what like they want to do, and it's going to be like the chintzy stuff, right? It's not going to be the big stuff. And you're not going to get what you want. So let's focus on the stuff that you want so I can really fight for you and get those things done. That's what I tell people. I mean, like I had a guy who wanted like it was like a flower box outside, like next to the house. It was big. And he insisted that he wanted it on top of the 50 things. I'm not even kidding you. 50 things he wanted on that list. And I said, no, I said, I'm not putting flower box. I said, I'm not writing that. He's like, but I want them gone. I said, well, that's okay. Cause you can, I was like, you'll remove them. I'm not putting that on that list. It's already ridiculous enough. And he lost the house, by the way. So does that help answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
Does it? Okay.
Some appraiser, some inspectors, they kind of say we should prepare the buyer agent should prepare the buyer to lower the expectation before the inspection, so that they know what what it is, and make easier communication when inspection report comes out.
100%. So like setting expectations, I mean, like we don't want to scare them off, right? But like, I would just say to them, listen, when we go to this inspection, I'm sure you know that they're going to find stuff. But they're going to find stuff at every single house you're going to look at. It's a matter of what you're willing to deal with and like, what like the major issues are. This house may have like, 15 major issues. The next house, it's going to have major issues too. We just don't know how many they're going to have. So it's more about them kind of making this decision about like, if they can live with those things, get them like, it's like the seller does some things and like they don't do others. But there isn't going to be a single solitary house out there that is going to be, I mean, perfect. Even like you guys said, like, new builds, they have a ton of things wrong with them. Ton. I mean, like you should see the blue tape in those houses. It's all over the place. So, but yeah, setting expectations is right. You just said something about appraisal, I think. One thing I want to tell you guys about an appraisal. So if you're a seller or if you're a buyer's agent, if the house that's being sold or purchased, whichever way you want to look at it, has a kitchen in the basement. If that basement is not approved by the county, and it has a stove down there, that's all that matters. You can have a refrigerator, a dishwasher, a sink, and you don't have to like include the county in it. The second that you put a stove in that basement and you don't have it like approved by the county, you got to take it out for the appraisal.
Wow.
Take the stove and remove it. Put it in the garage, put it in another room in the basement. It cannot be plugged in and in that area. Once the appraisal is done, like appraiser's gone, you can move the stove back. I say that because one, it's going to get dinged every single time. And if the appraiser has to go back out to reinspect a property, the buyer gets charged for that, right? And like that's just how it is. So if like that there's a stove down there, I would just give the heads up to the listing agent and say, hey, I don't know if you are aware of this. You might be, but like the appraiser is going to ding that stove. So if you can just take it, unplug it, and put it like in another room, so that way we can pass the appraisal, that would be great. And then you can stick it back. So just so that I don't know if you guys know that or not.
No, that's new.
The other new thing too is with VA loans, it used to be that the seller was responsible for ordering and paying for the termite inspection. That is no longer the case. The VA buyer, just like a conventional or FHA, they order and they purchase the termite inspection. And when I say they order, I mean you ordered for them and then they pay for it. But so that's one change with like VA, and you can't charge a VA buyer a flat fee, just FYI. because the VA loan financing won't allow that. Any other questions? No other questions?
I have a quick question about the kitchen in the basement. What about a summer kitchen? I know of 2 houses that have kitchens in the downstairs. And it's like it's not a separate living area, but it's an extension of the house. It's what they call a summer kitchen.
But it's inside the house, right?
Right.
So yes, so it has to be removed, unplugged, removed, and again, stick it somewhere else, like, you know, in like another like room or something like that. It doesn't matter if the appraiser sees it like, you know, in another room or something, just throw like a sheet over it or something. But yeah, it has to be unplugged.
Why are we doing this? Because it has not been be declared at the county, right?
Correct. It hasn't been like cleared by the county. And so like, so when the appraiser comes in, if you still have the stove there, I mean, like they're going to write up in the report, you know, you need to remove the stove, cap it off, and like they have to come back out and re-inspect. Now, if the buyer's like, I don't want that there, I want that big gaping hole there instead, then like, you know, that's fine. And then like the seller will have to cap it off and remove it. Most of the time, the buyers want that stove to be in there because they want to be able to like rent out that space or whatever it is, have it like an in-law suite or something. Any other questions?
But you see, many people are looking. You find people who are looking for basement with kitchen. That's
A lot
the
of
main
people.
thing that they're looking for when looking for a house. Now, if you find yourself in this situation where that kitchen was not approved by the county and has to be removed so that they don't even see that it's in, what's the purpose now? Because it was their purpose to buy that house with a kitchen in the basement.
And are you saying the buyers want that stove down there?
Yes.
Oh yeah. So like what the seller would do is they would unplug the stove, take it and put it in another room in the basement, whatever. And then the appraiser comes, they do their thing. Appraisers are like only in a house for, I don't know, 20 minutes, if that. And then once the appraiser leaves, the seller can put the stove right back where it was and plug it back in.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, so like the biggest things that, you know, just to tell you guys is, you know, I always ask for permission whenever I, you know, want to give my opinion on everything. Keeping track of those deadlines and keeping in really close communication and making sure that you're communicating with all parties and keeping an open line of communication is going to get you far in this business. You know, and then just really just helping your client, you know, guide them through this process. And I don't ever answer questions that I don't fully know the answer to. I won't ever do it. And there's still stuff I don't know. And so I say to people, that's a great question. Let me like look into that. If I don't like it, if like I can't find the answer myself, I'll reach out to somebody who can help. So that way I can get that for them. I will tell you that one of the complaints that I have from the clients that I work for, not the agents, but their clients, is they'll say like, you know, oh, I haven't heard from my agent in blah, blah, blah time. And I'm like, I mean, like, you know, they hear from me a lot because I do the do. So just always just keep in contact and give them as much information as you can to help them make the best decisions that they can. Because you have to remember, this is one of the biggest purchases that people will make in their lifetime. And some people have never done this before, and some people have done this, you know, 5 times over. So yeah. Anything else? Nobody? I don't even know how many people are on here. I can't even tell because you know I'm so great with this.
18 participants.
How many?
It says 18.
Oh, okay.
It was 20.
Yes, so Marcia, so yes, so there is a charge for the appraiser to come back out to re-inspect. So one thing that I do as a listing agent is because I used to go to houses and like walk houses and stuff. And like I know, for example, that like FHA and VA, if there's a stair, like if there are stairs, there's gotta be a handrail. A graspable handrail. You know, chipping paint like on the outside, VA and FHA, it's got to be taken care of, even if it's a deck. Conventional is like the easiest one. Like, you know, they're not real picky about really anything. So I will tell my seller, I'm telling you, you've got to fix this because it's either pay me now or pay me later, one of the two. Same thing with smoke detectors. They have to be like the new updated Maryland law ones that have that oh my gosh, I can't think of it right now.
Carbon
yeah.
monoxide.
Yes. So like, you know, make sure like you go ahead and change those out, do that. Now, could the appraiser ding something else I didn't think of? Of course, but I'm like, let's just do our due diligence. So that way it will make this process go faster. And there like won't be any hiccups, at least that like, you know, we can control.
Thank you. I recently did an open house and potential buyers came through asking about the roof. So I always ask if they have an agent. And sometimes I get the sense that they say that they have an agent so that I'm not basically pestering them, right? So when they ask me questions about the house, I know that they can get that information from their agent. Do I go on and get that information and give it back to that potential client, or do I just like tell them to refer them back to their own agent?
So, so that's a good question, right? Because like, you know, if they have an agent and, you know, you start communicating with them, like, you know, that's a big no-no. Like, you know, if you're trying to like, you know, help them and give them advice and stuff like that. What I would say to them is I would say, you know, absolutely no problem. Why don't you give me your agent's contact information? And what I'll do is that I'll find out the age of the roof or whatever they're asking. And then I'll email them that information and then they can get that to you since you're already working with an agent. That's kind of how we
Perfect answer.
like.
I like that. Perfect answer. I like that a lot.
Yeah. So, yeah. And then that way, I mean, like, you know, it's really gonna, that's going to really show you if they have an agent or not, because they're like, oh, there's a number on hand. Yes, you do. Like, come on, it's like a doctor. Yes, you do. Any other questions?
Yes, I have a question. So you were mentioning about the not inspection, but you had someone that got work done and the person wasn't licensed, and that was an issue that you had. So how did you remedy that issue with, for example, plumbing, and the person who fixed it wasn't licensed? And how did you go about that with it being fixed but not by a licensed person?
So what I would do is that I would remind the agent that a licensed plumber needed to like do the work. And it's one of those things that like this, for example, is like, how hard does your client want you to push? I will push hard without getting the client involved, right? Because like, I don't want to upset the client over something that I think that I can resolve. And if I think that I can't, then I'll like wrap them in to get like, you know, to ask them what they want me to do. But I will remind them that contractually, they need to, that like a licensed plumber needed to do it. And if they say, well, they just had their brother do it, I'll write back and I'll say, I understand that. But the seller needs to have a licensed plumber go out and review the work that their brother did and sign off on it that it's correct. So not that they have to go back out and redo the work, but that they have to sign off on it. I have had sellers or listing agents have their seller do that, and it works out fine. If they dig their feet in the, like, dig their heels in the ground, then like I go back to the buyer and I say, listen, so the seller had the plumbing work done, but didn't follow our directions. And they had like an unlicensed person do it. So we have a couple of options. A, I can go back to them and say, we're not going to this closing table until you get a licensed person out there to sign off on that work. B, you can say, it's fine, just send me the receipt, whatever, that's okay with me. Or 3, we can have your inspector go back out to the property and re-inspect that specific repair that was to be done. I let them make the decision. Some will say, I'm not going to settlement until, a licensed plumber goes out there. Okay. And I say, okay, so, but now, if we say that, the seller could say, I'm not signing an extension. Right. So we have to give them the pros and cons of the decision that they're about to make. It's just educating them so that way they understand the consequences of any side of it. And more than likely what they will do is they'll pay for the inspector to go back out, which I highly recommend, because look, nobody on this call is going to bring a ladder and get up on the roof to make sure that like the shingles are put back in place, or that the chimney cap is on right. I mean, if you do, God love you. I mean, that's amazing. But I can't tell if electrical's done. I mean, I don't know anything about that. So I do recommend to have the inspector go back out and take a look at it. So just FYI.
And who pays for that? Who pays for that, the second return?
The buyer.
The buyer.
The buyer, yeah.
So he pays twice.
Yeah, I mean, and here's the thing. I mean, like, just like with well and septic inspections, right? When people hear the price tag to get a well and septic inspection done, they're like, what? Like, it's like $1,200. It doesn't include home. It doesn't include termite, if there's a chimney or whatever. And I say to them, I'm like, listen, I get it. That's a lot of money. And I said, but I would rather you pay that money now, find out if there's any issues, and to see if they can be resolved, rather than you saying, never mind, I'm not going to pay for it. It'll be fine. Then you buy this however many dollar house. I don't care if it's 200,000, 100,000, whatever. It's still a lot of money. And like something happens to the well and septic. I'm like, I'd rather now to back out than to have a mortgage of, whatever it is, a high dollar amount, and their stuff wrong. So it's the same thing with that. I tell people, I really recommend that, like, you get a re-inspection. I get it. It's more money. I understand that. However, I'd rather now if those things need to be fixed, especially if it's electrical, like that's a safety issue. Then that way we can correct it before you get to the settlement table. Otherwise, it's on you. So that's how I explain it to people. Nobody thinks about it. All right, it's 8:02, friends. Any other questions? No? Okay, did you guys email me if you wanted me to send you stuff? Did you? Oh, yes, some of you did. So yes,
okay.
so
let me put my email too.
Yeah, just email me, and then what I'll do is, okay, yeah, put those in there. Actually, what I'll do. I'll send you guys all of my templates. Obviously, like, you're just gonna, need to, what did that just do? Oh, stop it. Here, do me a favor, email me, and then I will, because I don't know if, like, after this call, it's going to clear everything.
Disappear. What's your email?
Yep. So I just put it in the chat. So it's Stephanie, STEPHANIE at KW Gateway. Oh my
Get home.
God. Oh my God.
Get home or gateway.
Gatewayhomes.com. I just corrected it. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. Stephanie at kwgatewayhomes.com. So just email me. And then I think some people just wrote like templates, like you don't have to make it fancy. I understand what it is. And then I'll send you the templates and everything so that way you have them and to use them. And I hope this was helpful for you guys. And I wish you all the very best of luck. And if you ever need anything or have any questions, you can email me. I'm always happy to help and answer questions, and because some agents are mean. I'm not. I'm willing to help people.
Thank goodness.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
yeah.
All right, bye guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Good
Everyone have a
luck.
good night.
Right.
Thanks again.
You're welcome.